Today's investigation comes from journalist, professor, broadcaster Hannah Fry, who says,
I don't know if you've ever heard that story about how carrots help you see in the dark. This has been researched by the brilliant people at the World Carrot Museum. Yes, that's the real thing. Unfortunately, it's online only. Can't go and see it. But they researched it and they discovered that this rumour was actually started as a World War II secret back in the 1940s.
She goes on to say that Britain developed radar, but we're trying to keep things under wraps. At the same time, carrots were an easily grown vegetable in Britain, so the government started a propaganda campaign to convince people that carrots could help you see in the dark. She never explicitly says it, but the implication, which others do say explicitly, is that this served the twin goals of getting Brits to eat more carrots while keeping the Germans unaware of this new technology. And this is the origin of the story that carrots help you see in the dark. The first thing to notice is that unlike many edutainment YouTubers, she actually gives a source, the Carrot Museum. Let's put a pin in that, we'll come back to it. It's also worth pointing out that sources differ. She says it's radar. Most other sources explicitly say it's airborne interception radar. But rather than start ripping your hair out about trying to figure out which one is correct, first it's good to see, is the underlying fact itself actually valid? And for this case, in the absence of a memorandum or any actual hard evidence, which does not seem to exist, I went about it by deciding, what is the soft underbelly of this fact that we can attack? And the nice thing about this one is it sets up a very clear timeline of World War II starts, that carrots help you see in the dark starts spreading from British sources. If this exact timeline does not hold, the fact cannot be real. And guess what? In 1935, so well before the start of World War II, Dr. Marston T. Bogert of Columbia University is being quoted as saying that you should eat plenty of carrots and tomatoes if you want to see well in the dark. That's not a one-off. In August 1939, so still before the start of the war, newspapers are quoting Miss May E. Foley of Massachusetts State College as saying, "A person whose vision in dim light is impaired due to lack of vitamin A can eat a serving of carrots before he goes out driving in the evening and be assured that his vision will be better." So before World War II even starts, people are saying that if you want to see better at night, eat carrots. Myth fairly definitively disproven. You could now reasonably ask, okay, it's not true that they invented the idea, but was it popularized because of radar-centric propaganda? Now we can return to the Carrot Museum. It's a difficult read because it seems to know that the fact is a myth, but is never quite willing to commit. But they quote the curator of the RAF Museum as saying, "We have not, as of yet, found any official paperwork or correspondence in our collections relating to any officially organized attempt by the Air Ministry or RAF to convince the Germans our night fighter successes were down to carrot consumption." And the German intelligence service were well aware of our ground-based radar installations and would not be surprised by the existence of radar in aircraft. It is true that the government talked about how carrots helped pilots see in the dark, but the curator of the RAF Museum said that this message was for a domestic audience to encourage consumption of the readily British-grown carrot, as opposed to more difficult vegetables, not in an attempt to bamboozle the Germans. Which fits because one of our few actual sources for this is Herbert Morrison, who for much of the war was the UK's Home Secretary. In his autobiography, Morrison says that during the war they had a problem, a combination of food scarcity and a glut of carrots. He says, Lord Woolton got rid of the carrots, minimized the effects of shortages of other vegetables, and helped people to tackle the miseries of the blackout at one and the same time by stressing that carrots improved night vision. His masterstroke was to spread the report that the night fighter and bomber aces of the RAF were eating carrots to enable them to see in the dark. The new airborne radar, and for that matter the powers of the older ground station radar detection, were at the time top secret. Now, if we stop there, it seems like pretty okay confirmation that the RAF story is true. But Morrison doesn't stop there. He says, success in bringing down enemy bombers at night was increasing, thanks to these radar devices, and the public was naturally asking how it was done. Some at least were quite convinced that it was all done by carrots. And in how I read Morrison's autobiography, it's basically, well, the pilots do eat carrots. I see no reason to correct this assumption. And it doesn't mention keeping it a secret from the Germans at all. And these efforts probably worked because throughout the 30s, there were reports of carrots being useful for night vision and specifically night blindness. This wouldn't have been new information to people. Indeed, it's possible to read Morrison's statement as saying the carrot assumption initially came from the populace, not the government, though debatable. All of that makes the radar-centric story profoundly unlikely. The evidence is that the carrot story was entirely domestic. So Hanifer's video is half right in saying that they want the British population to eat more carrots, but bringing the Germans into it seems unsupported by any evidence. And that the British created the story doesn't work. However, that doesn't answer the question of whether the British popularized it. I'm hesitant on that one, largely because in the 1940s, there's plenty of evidence people thought vitamin A in general, and carrots in specific, helped night vision, in contexts where it's difficult to imagine a Blitz-era propaganda source. Like a 1943 Mickey Mouse comic strip has Mickey adding vitamin A to Pluto's food so that Pluto will, quote, be able to see in the dark like a cat. That suggests it's a pretty well-known trope. It's not impossible that this is British propaganda spillover, but I see no evidence to raise it out of not impossible, especially because we have independent attestations of the story from before they would have thought of any propaganda. Though I might be missing something on that score. So if I was tasked with researching this for a script or whatever, here's how I would suggest wording the fact. You've probably heard the story that eating carrots helps you see in the dark. The origin of this story seems to be that in the 1920s, scientists noted that this newfangled vitamin A, seemingly correctly, helped with night blindness. As the 1920s went into the 30s, scientists started to wonder, well, if it helps with night blindness, maybe it can help you see in the dark full stop. That one didn't pan out so much, but it had an interesting consequence. During World War II, Britain had the problem of a lot of carrots that they wanted to ditch off to the masses because of wartime restrictions. At the same time, they were having great success with airborne interception radar against the Germans. Now, critically, the Germans probably knew about this radar, but the British population didn't. So the government was able to say, hey, you should eat more carrots. Our RAF boys swear by them, and they'll help keep your eyes sharp for blackouts. And Britain started eating more carrots. However, it's basically impossible to draw a straight line from these propaganda efforts to the idea that carrots help you see in the dark. The myth predates any potential propaganda, and this was an era called Vitamania. Vitamins were new, they were exciting, and so a lot of people put incredibly dubious claims about the power of these newfangled vitamins. So really, the British government was probably tapping into popular belief and zeitgeist more than creating a misconception. But by and large, people believe that carrots help you see in the dark because 1930 scientists said they did. And that kind of fact just has a way of sticking in your head. Yeah, that's not getting 1 million views anytime soon.